Selina Wiarby hated the middle of the week. On Wednesdays the corridors of Bayside First Bank rang not with confident negotiations, but with the buzz of fluorescent lamps and the wheeze of the air-conditioning system, as though the building itself was tired of issuing loans at 4% per annum. At 8 p.m. she was still sitting behind the glass partition of the manager's corner. The expenses of a corporate client were off by 43 cents. Selina saved the file, exhaled, and for the first time that day allowed herself to notice. Her feet were burning from the heels, and under the silk blouse a sticky, anxious melancholy clung to her skin. That feeling when everything is scheduled down to the smallest detail, yet not a single cell rejoices. She had chosen this bar deliberately. Starlight sat on the roof of the neighboring hotel's 30th floor and looked straight into the bay, dark water, fiery glints from the lighthouse, and the neon ribbon of the causeway across the strait. There was almost no danger of meeting acquaintances. Bank clients read about such places in magazines, but rarely made the trip. Selina ordered a creamy salty Sky 16 whiskey, exactly one pour, so that her head would become not quieter, but more honest. Ice crackled, amber swirled in the thick glass, and the world shrank to the aroma of peat and vanilla. She had not managed a second sip, when a low baritone sounded at her right. "You're drinking alone tonight." Selina turned. The man kept his distance, not a centimeter closer than strangers should, but auras of confidence trailed warm like perfume. A silver streak in dark hair, a strict navy suit without a tie, an IWC watch, details that did not shout, but whispered of expensive taste. She met his gaze. Brown eyes with barely noticeable rays of wrinkles at the corners, eyes in which strength and fatigue coexisted. He smiled with only his lower lip, politely, without presumption. "Apparently not anymore," she answered, rotating her glass toward him the slightest bit. He nodded to the bartender and ordered a second serving of the same whiskey, with a gesture, not a word, as if the bartender had long known what those fingers meant. "Gabriel Marrow," he introduced himself, raising his glass. "Selina," she nodded, feeling how her name came out softer than usual. The bar pianist began. "I fall in love too easily. Modern jazz dissolved distances better than 2 shots of tequila." City lights outside trembled as if painted on water. "Rough day." The bank does not forgive decimals. Selina tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture her husband Michael once called a red flag. Gabriel heard it. He asked about what never appears in bank reports, about how many nerves someone else's stability costs. She was surprised. Few are interested. He spoke of his shipbuilding automation firm. He had moved to the board, but each week went to the yard to get his hands dirty. "Otherwise I lose respect for myself." Selina remembered her forgotten habit of checking the cash vault personally. A soft connection of shared experience, both live by numbers, both fear that one day the numbers will stop meaning anything. He leaned closer, not to flirt, but so he needn't shout over the saxophone. "Secret scent, honeyed tobacco, resinous wood." Selina caught herself holding her breath. The bartender laid down the bill. Gabriel covered the folder with his credit card before Selina could devise a polite protest. "I live across the bridge, 10 minutes, he said calmly, as if announcing the weather forecast. "The terrace has a good view of the channel. Sometimes it helps remember life is more than reports." He didn't ask, "Will you come?" Yet the invitation hung between them like a note awaiting resolution. Selina glanced at her phone. 21:47, a message from Michael, garden watered, early bed. Only 6 words, smelling of their marriage. She drained her whiskey, set the glass down so the ice rang loudly, a small mutiny. "Show me your view," she said. Her voice was lower than usual, the tone with which a manager approves risk. In the elevator Selina felt her pulse beating under her collarbone. No promises except one: this night would not be another line on a balance sheet. The doors opened, silken night cloaked the city, and tiles rang under her heels. Suddenly Selina realized, at 48 one can still begin a paragraph where numbers aren't the main characters, and a crack in comfort is not a leak, but an invitation to air. The cabriolet rolled up to the gated quarter. Rain, starting as a faint tick on the roof, burst into scattered beads. In the headlights, wet asphalt shimmered like black opal. Rare passers-by looked like shadows, each with a story, each with an unspoken what-if. Gabriel steered with one hand, flipped playlists with the other. Instead of predictable low jazz came the cinematic orchestra. The bass line was smoothed by the patter of rain, as if the orchestra rehearsed in the sky. Selina, knees covered by his tweed jacket, felt strange calm. The city ran outside, yet inside the car it seemed the world had found the pause button. Do you often bring unknown bank managers here? Only those whose calculations balance to the last cent. She smirked. The joke was light, but beneath it lay a warning. No cheap promises here, only what withstands an honest look. The house stood on a slope, glass, dark timber, the smell of wet cedar. From the open terrace air struck with briny ocean freshness below. A giant crane slowly swung its arm, hinting at the motion of immense things usually hidden from sight. Gabriel brought 2 glasses of Albareo, cold, limey, white-flowered on the palate. To Wednesday, he toasted. And to exceptions to the rules, she answered, clinking. The glasses rang almost inaudibly, yet the echo drifted into the fog above the water. The rain stopped. A lilac band stretched from the horizon, city lights dissolving like sugar. About parents. Selina told how her accountant father taught her to double-check everything to the penny, but forgive people for dollars. Gabriel's mother had hosted a late-night radio show, telling strangers truths they feared to pronounce at home. He smiled. Seems we both grew up in other people's hiding places, in numbers and in voices. About fear of missing time. Gabriel admitted he had sold a controlling stake in the company, but still woke each morning thinking the main project was unstarted, that he was a ship at the pier feeling the tide yet afraid to sail. Selina nodded softly. A bank is the same pier. The stronger the concrete, the heavier the anchor. He put on vinyl, Billie Holiday's I'll Be Seeing You. Guitar strings softened the space. Selina felt the beat reach her wrists. Do you dance? In numbers, brilliantly. In reality, I once could. Night is the safest place to err, he smiled, extending a hand. She placed her palm in his. Warm deck wood under bare feet, wine breath, Billie's rasping voice, and behind, the emptiness of a 30-foot drop. Step, turn, pause. No proper weight transfer, only searches for balance that made movement alive. When the song faded they did not release hands. Gabriel's thumb slid along her knuckles, no demand, but a promise that possible exists. Leaning on the railing, Selina noticed a thin scar on his forearm. Shipyard. Cable snapped 8 years ago. Does it hurt? Sometimes aches before a storm. Reminder I don't live in a vacuum. He turned her palm upward, touched a tiny white mark at the base of her thumb, one she herself had nearly forgotten. And this? First counterfeit 100. Paper cut. The machine failed when I was 22. Learned every figure is about a person. 2 stories in 2 scars, and between them something third no balance sheet can express. His watch flashed 23:19. In Selina's pocket the phone vibrated. Michael, light off, see you morning. 6 words again, closing the familiar world like shutters. Gabriel saw the distance in her eyes, asked no question, only pulled up a blanket, cold. She inhaled, humid, salty, as if whiskey, Albareo and self-search mingled. Not from the wind, she answered honestly. He didn't step closer, instead he turned the terrace heater's dial. Warmth wrapped her legs, leaving the choice. Selina raised her glass, took the last sip, floral, honeyed, a hint of sea. A candle on the glass table flickered, its flame reflecting in 2 glasses, empty, yet still warm at the rims. Ahead lay hours until dawn, enough to invent new mathematics, where the main number is one genuine moment. Below, an ocean tughorn groaned. Selina looked at the city, then at the man beside her, and suddenly realized Wednesday was already over. Tomorrow hadn't begun. And now, unrepeatable. An alarm rang at 5:45, as always, rhythm turned to a prayer of discipline. Selina stretched, but instead of Michael's familiar eucalyptus balm she smelled last night's salt, cedar plank, albareo, someone else's warm hand on her nape. Alarm protocols fired, you returned at exactly 2 can still call it a late meeting. Consciousness, an experienced auditor, set up 2 columns, should an actual, and wrenched them apart with a crunch. In the marble lobby of Heritage Trust mirrored walls returned the reflection of an impeccably composed woman, mint green suit, thin chain, square-framed glasses. Not a hint of a sleepless night. Yet reviewing the morning report, Selina found the zeros streaming off the screens like rows of lights in the night city, and in each she imagined a black cabriolet on an empty road. Mrs. Hawthorne, will you sign the necessary documents before lunch? Of course. If I relearn to see lines instead of my pulse. Colleagues dispersed, office hum subsided, and in the silence her ear caught the blood beating in her temples, as if someone tapped a pen on a calculator lid. How much does one unplanned breath cost? Clara Wu, chief risk manager, had been Selina's friend 10 years and read microcracks better than rating tables. They sat in a tiny Thai bistro. Hot tom yum rose in steam like a curtain, letting them talk almost telepathically. You have the look of someone who's opened their sluice to catastrophe. Dramatic word. Catastrophes always arrive quietly. Though sometimes in very nice suits. Selina smiled with one corner of her mouth. Nice was the one word she feared more than irrational. Clara covered her hand. Before you sign anything tonight, ask, who answers for force majeure? Force majeure, yes, that was yesterday's rain's smell. Michael set roast chicken with rosemary wine, California red, not cheap, because Wednesday. Selina kissed her husband's temple, holding her lips long enough to believe in the habitual gesture. He spoke of politics, gas prices, how the irises were budding. She nodded, hearing behind words his steady breathing, an ocean rhythm without storms. But between sips of wine another table formed in her mind. Report finished 1810, call from Casey in Camploans 1922, and an empty cell at 9 p.m., where yesterday was Gabriel's phone lit orange. Can you see the lighthouse? Today I signed 23 credit agreements, and never flinched while writing my signature. Yet my hand kept remembering how you held it by the railing, as if checking the city's pulse. I can manage capital, but cannot record the line why it feels hot now. Yesterday I thought I sought adventure, today I know I seek proof. I can still change trajectory, not only balance. Selina reread, selected all, hit delete. Too early to harass evening with such truth, numbers must at least agree in draft. 2307. Usual notification, unknown caller. She closed the laptop, went into the garden under Cicada's hoarse serenade. Do you hear the surf? Gabriel's voice through wind. Only rustle of leaves. Come tomorrow. Water will be almost warm, and risk, almost reasonable. She laughed softly. Risk is never almost, it either exists or is priced. I'm ready to post collateral. Back inside, Selina caught her reflection in the terrace glass, pajama pants, plain t-shirt, yet in her eyes a shine impossible to log in KPI. She took a hard-spined notebook and added a new line to an ongoing list. 1. Find out which is stronger, attraction or fear. 2. Give no promises that can't be audited. 3. Remember, any bookkeeping can be rewritten, a heartbeat cannot. The bedside candle snapped its wick. Selina pinched it out, feeling the faintest pain, small control signal that boundaries still exist. She fell asleep knowing morning would present new invoices. The only question, ready to pay not in numbers but in yes or no. At dawn Selina left Michael a brief note, "Don't worry, dash to the ocean to clear my head back by dinner," and rolled the dark grey Volvo out of the garage. The coastal highway greeted her with melting fog, chalky tongues skimming the asphalt, testing the resolve of those who rose earlier than the sea. The speedometer held at exactly 68 miles per hour, any higher and the dashboard would flash red excess risk. She had chosen to purchase risk in doses today. Gabriel's place lay in a semi-wild cove, a former fishing pier, a couple of wooden houses and an unkempt landscape where every plant grew as it pleased. From afar a flag waved, bright orange cloth on his boat's mast. Selina parked, stepped out, inhaled, air of seaweed, salt, pine resin, and, unexpectedly, fresh dough. Gabriel met her on the veranda, linen sleeves rolled. On the table sat 2 cups and a clay dish of rolls. "Breakfast is always almost ready. When the guest matters more than sleep, yes." He spoke calmly yet tracked every movement, how she slipped off her jacket, tossed her hair. Selina noticed and felt a tremor, not fear, anticipation. They walked to the water. The boat rocked at the pier, the keel thudded the pilings, testing whether she'd changed her mind. "If we sail, coverage drops," he warned. "Then no auditor's calls to wait for," she smirked. Gabriel slipped on her life vest, fingers lingered at the buckle just longer than needed. A nearly professional gesture, yet hot sparks rushed under her skin. Contact approved but not yet booked. The boat carved turquoise crests, engine hump dissolved in wind whistle. Gabriel throttled down, dropped anchor. Around them, ring of horizon with no other craft. Now we're truly outside observation. Selina sat on the bow, legs dangling, letting waves lick her sneakers. "Why me?" she asked without turning. "Because you can hold course. Even when it storms." The phrase made her smile bitterly. "If you saw my internal reports, storm corrections on every page." He came closer, brushed the back of her hand. Touch was light, almost academic, yet echoed in her chest like a breaker. Memory flashed Michael's patient face. Selina didn't pull away, but rotated her palm so their fingers met only at the tips, the smallest contact conscience allowed. Gabriel set a thermos between them and pulled out a tablet. On screen, Quiet Coast's foundation project, for which he wanted Heritage Trust as partner. "I'm not only hunting the moment," he said. "Need an operator bank that builds transparent schemes. And you decided to verify solvency via dinner and a boat. I decided to show that trust isn't always a signature under NDA." She clicked the stylus, marking up the diagram. "Due diligence first, Gabriel. Then personal." The words were strict, yet her eyes met his again, too direct, too open. And she allowed herself a thought, that's what compatibility looks like. Numbers and salt spray on one screen. When he passed her a cup of coffee, their fingers intertwined. Heart sped, breath shortened, but body language stopped before the point of no return. He merely ran his thumbs along her knuckles, slowly, almost meditative, as if memorizing her skin's relief. Selina closed her eyes a moment. 2 reels overlapped, she and Michael in the evening garden, familiar as a template beside it, a new scene, she and Gabriel on the deck, wind-tangling hair. You can't press delete, only pause. She opened her eyes, put down the cup, rose. "Let's return. I need land so numbers and heart speak the same language again." Regret trembled in her voice, yet firmness too. He nodded instantly, no argument. "Course, home." On shore he helped her to the pier, their hands parted reluctantly, but without drama. "I'll send documents tomorrow," he said. I'll check the lines and the spaces between them, she answered. The car started first try. Selina played Fleetwood Mac's Landslide. Road back felt lighter, the equation now had two clear unknowns, not an endless spectrum of penumbra. Phone vibrated. Michael, expect you by 7. Made your favorite lemon pie. She smiled, and the next second another notification. Gee, the shore stays silent until called. Do you still hear the surf? Selina replied to neither. She turned up the volume, absorbing Stevie Nicks, and let the car fly the highway, holding course between two shores of her life. At 1857 Selina returned up the driveway, as neatly as she'd draw a report from negative to positive, wheels exactly on gravel lines, engine at idle, as if not to wake thoughts. Michael's familiar silhouette suddenly became a pulse meter of her conscience, one glance and the needle swung into the red. Stayed long at the ocean? He asked kindly, taking her bag. Traffic took longer, tourist season, she said, noticing how easily lips delivered half-truth. Inside, among the mail, a DHL envelope waited bearing G Harbour Foundation. Documents sooner than expected. Beside it a card in Gabriel's hand. I left the fields for your notes, correct the course if needed. Selina squeezed the thin card until her nails whitened. TV noise became a distant surf. Internal dialogue, check the budget and sign if everything's transparent. And if not? Or if transparency is only a pretext to return? Then you'll sail again, but without a life vest. She hid the envelope in the work folder, where Michael never looks. But the ocean smell seemed to soak even the plastic file. Morning, trustee board call. 10 familiar faces and one new rectangle, Gabriel W., guest. He greeted colleagues evenly, as though yesterday's finger touch were merely a gender item. She wore a professional mask, but each phrase hit her like a hidden meta tag. Highlight, see, hear, feel. MS. Lawrence, are you ready to present the reliability opinion? The chair asked. Selina glanced at the file where a note requires clarification glowed red. 3 figures were missing, only she and Gabriel knew. If she voiced the gap, the project would stall, and grounds for personal meetings vanish. If she stayed silent it would be the first false number in her perfect column. Audit is ongoing, she said calmly. I'll return with results Monday. In the guest window the corner of his mouth twitched, barely, yet her pulse jumped 5 points. Nothing decided, yet everything already decided. Saturday. Afternoon sun clattered against the windows. Michael lounged in the hammock with a newspaper, yet eyes slipped past lines. Finally he folded pages. Selina, no preamble. You're charging on someone else's battery. Where? Whose? The phrase held no anger, but its weight crushed the air. Selina prepared to flee, but instead sat opposite him on the wooden deck. I met a project. And a person in that project. It knocked my settings. Are you leaving that shore? Not yet. But the current is strong. Silence they listen to the world, drone of dragonflies, distant dog bark, kitchen timer tick. Michael sighed, a garden can be transplanted if roots still live. But we must decide, in which soil. He rose, cleared dishes, granting a pause for decision. Selina bit her lip. The gardener proposed not fighting the storm, but counting the trees. noon she opened the laptop. G Harbour spreadsheet flickered empty cells. She began filling rows, costs, risks, revenue, but fingers switched to a new sheet. Lines trembled as if typed on a ship in heavy sea. She closed the file unsaved. The decision needed. Aging figures require fermentation like wine. Phone flashed unknown number. Selina, barely breathing, stepped onto the veranda. Hear the surf, Selina. Too loud to sleep. I sail at dawn. If you want a real talk, dock 5:15. And if I don't come? Then you've chosen your shore. Line cut. Inside, everything stilled, not passion, not fear, but void before a coin toss. Bedroom, Michael breathed evenly, facing her side of the bed. Selina gripped the doorknob, halted. On the floor, her yoga rucksack, enough room for laptop, wallet, light jacket. Cool at 5:15. She pulled a seafoam sweater, tossed in a flash drive with the project, then stared long at her sleeping husband. She zipped the bag slowly, didn't close fully so the sound wouldn't clang a verdict. Scene freezes, woman in half-light, bag in hand, 1 foot on the threshold. Clocks tick. Question remains open. Dark blue horizon bled first paleness of dawn, and Selina still stood in the hallway, like a passenger in a carriage not yet moving. On the credenza lay a coin, one side, the bank crest, memory of her first perfect annual report, the other, a lighthouse, souvenir from last year's holiday with Michael. She flipped the coin. She didn't look where it landed. But the faint ting on the floor, a bounce and final clink seemed to dot the sentence. At dawn she would drive to the dock. Water breathed a chestnut morning ripple, boats tapping halyards against masts. Gabriel leaned on a rail, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. His silence held no triumph, only attentiveness. Selina broke the pause first. 2.5 hours ago, I was ready to carry my bag the other way. Why are you here, then? She took a folder from her bag. Because numbers must be honest. On the first page, the blanks filled, one's shed plan to hold till Monday. At the bottom, a red ink note, factor in coefficient of unforeseen storms. It's always higher than it looks from shore. Gabriel smiled with his eyes. So you came not for me, but for the project. I came to reclaim from the project what it was taking from me, the illusion you can't step out of schedule for yourself. He handed her a mug. Selina thought the gesture held unspoken forgiveness. She sipped, the coffee was more bitter than usual. Selina, if I ask you to stay now, you'll break the very transparency we just signed for. A silk-soft laugh. They stood shoulder to shoulder, watching the first triangle of sun slit the water. When he placed a hand on her back, the touch carried no pull, only a final period. Thank you for the lighthouse, she said. Thank you for seeing the shore before we lost the depth. Michael sat on the porch in the same robe, steam fogging his lenses. He looked up without questions, as if knowing the timetable of this inner regatta. Selina handed him the rucksack. I came back not because nothing happened, but because something exists. He let the phrase lie between them like a raw plank still unwalkable. She sat beside him. I need a month's time out. Not a flight, an audit. I'll go to the San Jose office, drive the project to contract stage, then, to the ocean, alone. And me? You're the gardener who decides, transplant the tree, or let it root anew here. Michael rolled the ring on his finger, then nodded, consider my signature on your travel order. But come back with an answer, in which soil we both stick the sign growing again. Selina smiled, tired but honest. And for the first time in years they did not embrace by reflex. Space between them pulsed with respect. A letter arrived by regular mail. No return address. Inside, a tiny plastic compass and a postcard with a black and white lighthouse. On the back, Gabriel's handwriting, coefficient of unforeseen storms accounted for. If you need to check the course, the compass always points to itself, the rest is the captain's job. Selina slipped the compass into her windbreaker pocket on her morning beach walk. Soft fog erased the line where ocean met sky. She flipped the coin again, caught it this time, bank crest. She smirked, put it in the other pocket so the weight spread evenly. Stepping toward the water, Selina finally understood the main adjustment in any spreadsheet. Sometimes the total at the bottom matters less than the moment when the raw own heart stops hiding behind a formula. She inhaled salty air, felt sand accepting her bare feet, and walked along the shore, without a navigator yet with a calm, steady north inside.